very good morning, students. Welcome back to the class Sustainable Management of Natural Resources. Today, in this class, we are going to mainly learn about forest and wildlife and the contribution of others for the forest and wildlife we are going to see. Forests are biodiversity hotspots. One measure of the biodiversity of an area is the number of species found there. However, the range of different life forms, that is, bacteria, fungi, ferns, flowering plants, nematodes, insects, birds, reptiles, and so on, found is also important. One of the main aims of conservation is to try and preserve the biodiversity we have inherited. Experiments and fields such studies suggest that loss of diversity may lead to the loss of ecological stability. So, whatever may be the organisms, if the count in the environment, if there are losses or something damages takes place, means ecological stability, what happens, it will be damaged, and totally our environment, what happens, will be get affected. The people who live in or around forest are dependent on forest produce for various aspects of their life. The forest departments of the government, which owns the land and control the resources from the forest. The industrialists, from those who use tendu leaves to make beedis, to the ones with paper mills who use various forest produce but are not dependent on forest in any one area. The wildlife and nature enthusiasts who want to conserve nature in its pristine form. Let us take a look at what each of these group needs gets out of the forest. The local people need large quantity of firewood, small timber and thatch. Bamboo is used to make slabs for huts and baskets for collecting and storing food materials. As we all know, bamboo is having a wide range of uses. Implements for agriculture, fishing, and hunting are largely made of wood. Also, forests are sites for fishing and hunting. In addition to the people gathering fruits, nuts, and medicines from the forest, their cattle also graze in forest areas or feed on the fodder which is collected from the forest. Do not forget that before the British came and took over most of the forest areas, people had been living in these forests for centuries. They had developed practices to ensure that the resources were used in sustainable manner. After the British took control of the forest, these people were forced to depend on much smaller areas and the forest resources started becoming overexploited to some extent. The forest department in the independent India took over from the British, but local knowledge and local needs continued to be ignored in the management resource practices. Thus, vast tracts of forest have been converted to monocultures of pine, teak, or eucalyptus. In order to plant these trees, huge areas are first cleared of all vegetation. This destroys a large amount of biodiversity in the area. Not only this, the varied needs of the local people, leaves for fodder, herbs for medicines, fruits and nuts for food, can no longer be met from such forests. Such plantations are useful for the industries to access specific products and are an important source of revenue for the forest department. Students, do you know how many industries are based on forest produce? Are short contrivals, timber, paper, lag, and spots equipments. Industries would consider the forest as merely a source of raw material for its factories, and huge interest groups lobby the government for access to these raw materials at artificially low rates. Since these industries have a greater reach than the local people, they are not interested in the sustainability of the forest in one particular area. For example, after cutting down all the teak trees in one area, they will get their teak from a forest farther away. They do not have any stake in ensuring that one particular area should yield an optimal amount of some produce for all generations to come. We come to the nature and wildlife enthusiasts who are in no way dependent on the forest but who may have considerable say in their management. The conservationists were initially taken up with large animals like lion, tiger, elephants, and rhinoceros. They now recognize the need to preserve biodiversity as a whole, but should not we recognize people as forming part of the forest system? There have been enough instances of local people working traditionally for conservation of forest. For example, the case of Bishnois community living in western Rajasthan on the border of the Thar Desert. Conservation of forest and wildlife has been a religious tenet for them. These nature loving people who have for centuries been conserving the flora and fauna to the extent of sacrificing their lives to protect the environment. They are living with basic philosophy that all living things have a right to survive and share all these resources. The Government of India has recently instituted an Amrita Devi Bishnoi National Award for Wildlife Conservation in the memory of Amrita Devi Bishnoi, who in 1731 sacrificed her life along with 363 others for the protection of Kejri trees in Kejriwal village near Jodhpur in Rajasthan. Studies have shown that the prejudice against the traditional use of forest areas has no basis. Here is an example. The Great Himalayan National Park contains within its reserved area alpine meadows which are grazed by sheep in summer. Nomadic shepherds drew their flock up from the valleys every summer. When this national park was formed, this practice was put to an end. Now it is seen that without the regular grazing by the sheep, the grass first grows very tall and then falls over, preventing fresh growth. Management of protected areas by keeping the local people out or by using force cannot possibly be successful in the long the run. In any case, the damage caused to forest cannot be attributed to only the local people. One cannot turn a blind eye to the deforestation caused by industrial needs or development projects like building roads or dams. The damages caused in these reserves by tourists or the arrangements made for their convenience is also to be considered. We need to accept that human interventions has been very much a part of the forest landscape. The major contribution such as forest resources ought to be used in a manner that is both environmentally and developmentally sound. In other words, while the environment is preserved, the benefits of the controlled exploitation go to the local people, a process in which decentralized economic growth and ecological conservation go hand in hand. The kind of economic and social development we want will ultimately determine whether the environment will be conserved or further destroyed. The environment must not be regarded as a pristine collection of plants and animals. It is a vast and complex entity that offers a range of natural resources of our use. We need to use these resources with due cautions for our economic and social growth to meet our material aspirations.